When leaders and loyalists of the All Progressives Congress APC assembled in Abuja, the federal capital, not many believed the party summit would go beyond presenting a viable alternative to the ruling party. And so it appeared, until the keynote speaker at the event, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, took the stand.
I come to you not as a politician, and therefore I am free to speak exactly the way that I must speak. For the reality is that Nigeria is far from a mere geographical expression. The problem is that the people of Nigeria haven't understood that there is common heritage and common destiny, and that everything about the territory of any nation is determined not by any individual, but because amongst one of my many identities, I am also the wife of a pastor. And so, I do know in our book, the holy book, the Bible, that in Acts 17, there is a clear testimony of how nations and the bounds of their habitation are determined by God. So for those of you who continue to question whether it is Lord Lugard, or it is Miss Cho, or Mungo Park, or whomsoever you care to attribute the existence of Nigeria to, it would do well to reflect back and to know that no integrity of a country could have happened were it not permitted by the Almighty. I believe that we would have been less than a country by now, would have been less than the country we are today. Nigeria would not be the big population that it speaks to, which is economic development is important. Had it been that the Civil War did not come to an end, if any part of Nigeria breaks away from Nigeria as constituted, you no longer have Nigeria. I need every one of us to always bear that in mind. What remains would not be Nigeria. What remains would be some name that would not be as significant as having a population of multi-ethnic people constituting the largest population in a continent like Africa. And so for those of you in this room, the political class, who when it matters for transactions purposes, call back to issues of ethnocentrism, you no longer deceive the right-thinking Nigerians in that ethnocentrism, because they are certain that when it comes to the table of the sharing of the booties of governance, you never ask one another what ethnic group the other belongs to. You ask me to speak, you would have to bear with me. By the way, I was one person that had said that on the basis of the tragedy of the death of young people, I couldn't find myself as a mother accepting the idea that we were having a big party amongst the elite. It was a party for the elite. You all went. Don't behave as if you didn't go. Some of you all went. Okay, but there were people that, people in your party went. So we don't have a party crisis in Nigeria. We have a Nigeria political class problem. That's what we have. That's what we have. That's what we have. All the young people that I spoke to were shocked at the complete disconnect and almost cognitive and emotional dissonance of the older generation from the pains that they feel as those you have got. What happened to the country that held so much promise on that morning of October 1, 1960? After all, nothing makes the point of the failure to successfully transit from a country to a nation than the fact that we are yet again at a place of conversation about our country. We need to talk yet again. After many times of talk, what happened? How come a country which at independence was enthusiastically described by our first leader as an independent sovereign nation is at 53 hosting yet another constitutional, well, I wish it were, hosting yet another national conversation to determine whether it is a worthy union for everyone? Because you might say that a conversation on the unity of Nigeria is not on the table, but it would be the elephant in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you you're going to get uncomfortable at some time in the course of this speech.
Tracing the nation's political history followed a particular trajectory, and Dr. Ezekwesili was aware that her direction would make her hosts pretty uncomfortable. She pulled no punches and spared no one.
You asked me to speak because you thought when I come here, I would jump into economic terms and all of that. Well, you know what? My topic is called The Uncomfortable Truth of Elusive Economic Development, Nigeria's century-old failures and prospects for a new Nigeria, so that you can understand why it is that I have not launched into growth rate and all of that. Because these are the uncomfortable issues that must be addressed. All nations that we have studied that have moved from mere economic growth to economic development had to deal with the issues that we're talking about. You cannot grow and develop until you are bound in a common sense of vision, in a common sense of identity, in a common sense of purpose and direction, where your diversity becomes a strength and not a source of threat. That's why I'm taking you through this. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that even following the most traumatic civil war that ended in 1970, the re-emergence of our country provided a context to rally the entire citizenry to build from country to nation, but we missed that opportunity. We just carried on. We did not build a nation after what was an unbelievable tragedy. We just carried on, Nigeria, and we marched on. Sadly, that was a missed opportunity. Is it therefore not heartrending that the present state of our country nearly questions our status as one country?